Hi there, Linda Goodall here. When I was first learning to digitize, there wasn't any auto-digitizing. In fact, with the software that I had, if you wanted a running stitch around a design, you had to click for every single stitch point. Talk about tedious. Now that happened in my first two programs. My third program let me draw a shape or a line and apply stitches to it, which is pretty much how Hatch works. And that seemed pretty automagical to me at the time. Today, when we think of auto-digitizing, though, it's more like click to stitch or magic wand or some instant process where we bring in some clip art, do a couple clicks, and voila, we have a design ready to go and stitch. Well, it's not quite that easy, and I'm going to show you how. We're going to reproduce this design. It's just a little baby announcement. You do not need to know anything about digitizing. We're going to walk through the whole process. This is all auto stuff. You don't have to draw anything. We're going to use fonts, and we're going to use a piece of clip art. So let's get started. I'm going to start by creating a new document. Control N for new. There's my new document, and we need some artwork. So I'm going to go to the Auto Digitizing tab, and I'm going to insert artwork. And we have baby footprints here. I'm just going to open that. There's our image, and it's a little bigger than I want, so I'm just going to select it, and I'm going to set the width to 60 millimeters. And I'm also going to lock my artwork, so I can just press K on the keyboard, and now we see that little lock there, and our design is locked, so we don't accidentally shift it around. I'm going to be telling you shortcut keys, and if you want to really learn a program and get efficient at it, you should learn the common shortcut keys. This is a pretty simple piece of artwork. It's very clean, it's a nice solid color, so it's going to work well for auto-digitizing. Now, I can tell you that I don't do a lot of auto-digitizing. This is probably the second thing I've ever auto-digitized. So when you're first starting out, you may think that this is the way to go to auto-digitize, but I think you'll find out in pretty much short order that you're going to have to do some tweaking to get things the way you want. And if you really want it the way you want, then you'll probably have to manually digitize it. But let's go with this for now. Before we go any farther, I like to save the design. So I'm just going to do Control S, and I'm going to give it a name, and we'll do baby feet. And save it. So you want to navigate to a folder. This is where I just save all my work in process into the miscellaneous folder. Here I am. I'm now ready to go. Now I'm in the habit of locking my artwork, and you can see that with it locked I can't select it. So if I want to use one of these auto-digitizing methods, I'm going to need to unlock it, and we'll lock it afterwards. So I'll click on it, do Shift K. Now it's unlocked. Now I can select it, and I'm going to do Auto-Digitized Instant Embroidery. There it is. Now, is it ready to stitch? Well, kind of depends on what you think. I'm not too happy with that. I mean, I like the stitches it shows. I'm just not happy with the angles. Now I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to lock this for good. Okay, now it's locked, and I'm going to zoom in. And you can either zoom in by clicking this and dragging a box around it, but if I hover over it, see how it has a B? So I can just press B on my keyboard and just drag a selection box around it, and there we are. So if I want to change any of the properties on any of these little objects, in each one of these, each little toe and the foot, this is an object. In most digitizing programs, objects have properties like color, stitch type, direction, and we want to change the stitch direction on these feet. We'll start with the feet, then we'll do the toes. So I'm going to click on a foot, and to change anything in here, I need to click on Reshape. If I hover over that, you can see that it's H, and that's a good one to remember. So press H, and now we have this angle line, and I can just kind of tilt it up like that. It doesn't have to be right over the thing like I just drew it, but I just like to do that way. Then I'll click on Escape, click on the other foot, press H, and change that angle as well. Now while we have it selected, let's look at some attributes here. It has a tatami underlay, that's pretty good. pull compensation is 0.25. That's probably something I've set as my default. And we don't have to worry about stitch angle because we set it this way. Now you can set it by a number if you want to, but I'm a visual person, so I usually set it that way. And we're not going to worry too much about the rest of this stuff. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is, can you see these little dots? Well, let's turn off True View. And to toggle that off, that's just T. See, T on, T off. And you can see all these little dots around the shape. These are nodes, and these define the shape. So this software does a pretty good job of not putting too many nodes around here, because when you draw a shape, the ideal thing is to use the minimum number of nodes. Now you can see a little yellow square one and some round turquoise ones. The round ones are a curved line. The square one is a corner. Now what I like to do, I'm going to do this right now, I'm going to select all, Control A, and I'm going to go over here and choose Smooth Shapes. And what that does is it kind of softens the lines. You can see it doesn't quite follow the shape perfectly, but no one's going to see this artwork. You're the only one seeing this artwork as you digitize it. And now if I select this shape, press H, there are fewer nodes along these shapes. It just makes it smoother. So if I want to adjust it, it's easier for me to manually adjust it if I wanted to do that. And you just adjust it by clicking on one of those nodes and dragging it in or out. So I'm not going to do any more than that. I just wanted to show you how it worked. Now this red X is where this shape leaves to go to the next one, and this green diamond is where it starts. Now that I've got the feet the way I want, let's work on the toes. I'm just going to start with this toe for no particular reason. Press Escape, click the toe, and if we look over here, this indicates that this shape was created with the block tool. And when shapes are created with the block tool, each one of those lines that would be on the shape are an angle. So these are going to have more than one angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the toes. So what I did here, I'm just holding down the Control key, selecting all the toes, and I'm going to go to the Edit toolbox, and I'm going to remove stitch angles. Now they still have one angle on them. They have to have some kind of angle. And now I can just go back and replace them with what I want. So I'll just click on that first toe, press H. There's an angle line there. And I can just reshape it just like that. Escape, click, H, drag the angle line. Now sometimes the angle line can be hard to get because it's right under another node or something. There we go. Escape, H, escape, click, H. That one's pretty good. I'll leave that alone. H, escape, H. Remember, H is for reshape. Escape, H, escape, H, escape, H. So if you wait until it says angle, you can usually catch the angle there. Escape, H. There we go. And let's give it a quick peek in True View. So remember, T toggles True View on. Now this little thing here, this is because these stitches are extra long across here. And to keep them from getting too long and floppy, Hatch will put a little penetration mark in there. So it just sinks the needle where those stitches get too long. We're not going to worry about that. If I wanted to change that, there are ways to do that. So I'm going to go back to True View off, and I want to put some outlines around the feet. So to do that, before we do that, let's optimize this stitching order because it looks pretty weird. I want this foot to sew, and then I want these toes to sew, then I want this foot to sew, and then I want these toes to sew. Let's find this foot, and here he is in the resequence bar, and I'm just going to move it to the top. And there it is at the beginning. And then we'll pick this toe, and we'll see where this one is. I'm just going to resequence these together here. And then I'm going to select them all and drag them up there. Then I'll move this to there, and we'll see how these toes work. Now another way you can move these around is use little arrow keys. So let's check our order here. And those look pretty good. Now we're still doing some jumping around. We're going to fix that in a few moments. But I'm going to select this foot and this foot by holding down the control key. And then I'm going to go to the Edit Objects toolbox, and I'm going to choose Create Outlines and Offsets. And I want a satin line. You have several options here. Single run is probably the default. It's stuck on satin line because that's what I used the last time. And you can pick a color, so I'll just pick the blue. And you can also pick where the outlines will go. So I'm going to go with the middle one. Make sure you have Object Outlines checked and Offset Outlines not checked. And we'll click OK. And there it is. There's my satin outlines. So to see how they look, we'll just do T for True View. They look a little fat to me. So I'm going to select them. They're all right there. Hold down the Shift key. Select the bottom one. And I'll go to the Outline tab. It's a satin outline. I want to change this to 1.5. And I want to change the spacing to 0.45. Now I had to click on manual to be able to do that. These are really short stitches and they don't need to be that dense. So I'm just going to lighten it up a bit. I could probably even go to 5 and they would be fine. And I don't want that width at 1. I want it at 1.5. So you can either do this, which takes a long time, or you can just type it in. And that looks a little bit better. And I want to also check the underlay because these are really narrow columns and I don't want it to Tommy under there. I just want a center run. So I've changed that and that looks pretty good. Now notice where these all got placed. They got placed after the last foot. And I really want these to run right after the object itself because when you do outlines right after the object, they are better aligned. So if you have a design that has black running stitch outlines and they don't all sew at the end, it's probably that way so that they all stay together. And those are placed correctly. I think our feet are pretty well done. Let's check the Colors tab. We'll go up here to the Resequence bar, click on the Colors button. You can see that we have multiple swatches here. And what's happened is we have two colors that are flipping back and forth that are very close, so it's hard to see that on the screen. So I'm just going to click on the first one, hold down the Shift key, click on the last one, and then I'm going to click on color number 31 here. And 31 was the color it added when I brought in the artwork. So there are my feet, and we're zoomed in pretty tight, so they look pretty large. They'll sew nicely. So one more thing I want to do is in the Edit Objects toolbox, we want to apply closest join. And what that will do is it will optimize the stitching to put the shortest jumps in between, and so we might not have to trim. Like these toes are really close together, so we might not have to even trim between those. Now this toe looks a little wonky, so let me see what I can do about that. H, and all I did was hit the space bar, and that rounded that out nicely. Press escape. Let's go back to our objects. Since our feet are done, I'm going to do Control A, and I'm going to group them, Control G. And what this does is it turns them all into one object. So if I click on any part, I get the whole feet. Now we're ready to add our lettering. So let's zoom out, and what we can do, we can use these tools, which will zoom us out in little steps, or notice that there's a plus to zoom in and a minus to zoom out. So rather than, zipping all over the place with our mouse, we can just do minus, minus, minus. So to add letters, we're going to go to the lettering and monogramming toolbox, click on lettering, and we get a new window over here. And I'm going to just use the same lettering that I had before, Thomas. Put that up at the top. And you can see that I have these crosshairs. Those help me line it up so I can get him centered. And the font that I used before was Woodstock, but you can play around, try different fonts, see what you like. You can spend a lot of time playing with fonts, let me tell you. But I want to use the same one I did before, so I'm just going to press W, and it zaps me to the W's, and I'm going to click Woodstock. And I want that a little larger. Once again, I can use the arrow keys, or I can just type in what I want, which is 12. Now, this looks a little spaced out between the letters. I'm going to scrunch them up a bit. And this time I am going to use the arrow keys so that I can get a visual of what's going on. And I like to scrunch them up a little bit so that it decreases the space, and hopefully I won't have to trim in between those. So here it's going to jump across there, it's going to connect across there, and some of these will just be so tiny that you won't be able to see them. And this is considered a good practice. The reason we want to use the built-in fonts is they're more professionally digitized than if you use the true type fonts. We don't have to do any tweaking usually, and they're just great. So now I need to add the birth date. I'm going to right click on Thomas, and I'm just going to drag it down here. And that just made a clone of all of those attributes. So I already have Woodstock selected. I already have them scrunched up the way I want. Now all I have to do is type in the date. So we'll say 04/05.18. Press enter and do fit. I keep forgetting that the numeric keypad doesn't work in here for some reason. It doesn't work in Windows. I'm on a Mac. So I'm going to change that to 10, and maybe we'll do 9. So at 12 millimeters, this is about a ½ an inch tall, and this is slightly smaller. I think we want a different color blue. Let's lighten up our feet. So I'm going to select the feet. Remember, we grouped them, so I only have to click on one part, and then I'm going to click this light blue, and there it is. So let's do Control A again, and just in case we didn't get it all optimized, I'm going to do closest join again. And now we're ready to finish our design. Before I send this to my machine, what I like to do is to go up to the virtual sew out player and watch it sew. And I have this sewing really, really fast, so we should probably slow it down so you can see what's going on. You can adjust it here. You can back up. You can go to the next color, previous color. And once you get more familiar with embroidery, in fact, if you've been embroidering for quite a while and you're just now getting into digitizing, you'll be able to watch this design sew and figure out, oh, maybe I need to do a little adjustment here and there. Maybe I need to move some things around so I can have a more efficient design. And we'll speed that up and just finish it. Now once you're ready to save it out, let's do a save. I just did Control S, and that saved it as an EMB file. You always want to save your EMB files. That's your master file. Even if your machine, well, actually no machine is going to store an EMB file. Your machine has a specific format. Maybe it's PES or DST or some other format. Now that we have our design ready, let's export it. So we'll go down here to Output Design, click Export, choose your format, whatever it is. I usually sew in DST, so I'll just leave it at that. And save. Now it's ready to go to your machine. So let's say you have a little business, and your business is making these cute little baby announcements. Let's zoom out a little bit. You can see this is a 4x4 hoop. This would be a real easy project to have as a little business, because everybody wants to announce their baby, right? So you have this already, and you have your EMB format, and then let's say next week someone comes in and they say, oh, I want a baby announcement for my little girl, and her name is Thomasina, and she was born on April 25th. Can you do that? And you go, sure. And you just reopen the same file. Let's exit out of here. Can't do much when we're still in the sewing mode. And I'll just click on the name, go to lettering, change that to Thomasina, click on the date, change that to the 25th, and we can change the colors. Let's change the feet to this light pink, and we'll change the lettering to dark pink. And now we have our new design. So once you've done all that hard work of creating the original design, you just come in here and edit it for your next one. Now, really, you don't need to change the colors, because the colors have to do with what you put in your machine. But when you're printing worksheets, just having one that's colored the way you want it to be will be a reminder that, hey, this is a little girl. I need to do it in pinks, not blues. Now, one thing you might do is you might set up a template like this and save it as girl baby, and then the other one as boy baby. That way you just bring up the properly colored one and you just change the names. So this is a great way to support your little habit, your embroidery habit. I hope you've learned a few things here. Creating your own designs and hatches is really pretty easy once you figure out what the tools do and where they are. And really, don't you have to do that in any software you get. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time.